To order the Design Review Board for Tuesday, August 3rd, 2021. The first item on our agenda are the minutes of July 20th, 2021, which you've all received. Do we have any questions or corrections from the board?
No.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve?
I'll make a
Okay, go
Okay.
ahead.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the Mill Hill Realty Company at 17 Toilson Lane. Is the applicant present? Yes, present. Okay, can you take the podium, please? And why don't you describe the project and explain it?
Sure. Alex Balsam for the applicant. So the crux of the project is to take the existing block warehouse, upgrade it to, remove what we call the tile cow barn.
Yes.
Replace that with a new addition to the block building, and have a restaurant that basically brews its own beer. So there'd be a restaurant component, but basically a beer production component and a kitchen component. When seasonally appropriate, we'd like to have outdoor seating in the back. It's been positioned to be behind, basically tucked behind the building for privacy from the neighbors. The property is in a manufacturing zone. We think it's a fairly light use for what's allowed there, appropriate for the site. Frankly, probably something that would be positive for the village and the community. The property has basically been, not utilized for the last for quite a few years. But big picture, the time has come to do something with that property, and the owners thought that this was, when taking all those factors into consideration, the community, what's otherwise allowed at the site, that this would be a nice use.
Right, okay. And the approximate number of feet from the curb to the beginning of the building, which is on this drawing here? The approximate-
Approximately 200 feet.
Okay, thank you. And so basically, the noise level and things like this are basically projected out from the back of the building in the courtyard that you depicted here?
Correct.
So it's basically projected towards the property of the town of East Hampton and the railroad station, away from residential area, am I correct?
You are correct, and it's also worth noting that although there's a village and town boundary line directly behind the existing building.
Yes.
The 4 acres that is in the town is also owned by the applicant, and it's currently vacant.
Yes, and from reading through it, the applicant has about 4 acres, and it said 1 point some odd acres in addition to that. Are we talking a little under 6 acres?
A little under 6 acres when
Okay.
combining the village and the town portions of the
Right.
property.
Right. And the building that is there now has not been used in a number of years, so.
Correct. It was part of the family's furniture business, a warehouse.
Exactly. And the condition of the building right now, I think everybody has seen that, the condition of the building, which it could use some TLC.
Sure.
Okay, in that
Absolutely.
area. It's
Yeah.
kind of an eyesore. And what you propose is you're going to go ahead and revitalize this and add on to it.
Correct.
Okay, does everybody have the drawings?
Yes.
Okay, are there any questions from the board? Okay, anybody?
Are there any drawings available to us?
Pam?
I mean, you can look at mine. I did put them on the website, the village website too, last week.
Okay.
Yeah.
You and I could share our drawings.
Yeah, I
Would
know.
anybody on this side like to see the drawings? Did you all see it? Yes. Okay, you did see it?
Everybody okay?
Okay,
I just dialed you in so you hear.
okay. Okay. Any questions from the applicant for anybody here, sitting here? Surely.
To the podium,
To the
Janet.
podium, right, I'm sorry. Just introduce yourself.
I'm Janet Dayton, and a landowner and a house owner at the house, at this, in back of the property, or in front of the property. I'm wondering, you talk about the building, but I'm wondering what the thought is on using the vacant land. That's, I believe, the farmland in the town.
Thanks, Janet. So the town portion of the property is basically not a part of this project. Not going to be used towards it.
Okay. Does that satisfy your question? Okay. Anybody else here would like to go to the podium? Yes, and just introduce yourself.
Good morning, members of the board. My name is Brian Matthews. I'm at Matthews, Kirsten, Cooley, 241 Panago Road, East Hampton. I'm here today on behalf of Janet Dayton, who's the owner of 35 Toilson, Stacy Stowe and David Maynor from 27 Toilson, Eric and Kay Gibson at 30 Toilson, and Michael and Christine Aaron at 19 Toilson,
Okay.
most of whom are here today as well.
And these are all, could you just raise your hands, please, so I know? Okay, thank you.
And so they contacted me, and so with just questions they have. So, we wanted to make clear that this is not, trying to oppose this application or try to stop them from doing, this project, certainly substantially as proposed. But because it is such a, a drastic change for what's there now, obviously, and I understand the intention is to make it for the better, there were just some concerns and questions that they had that they kind of wanted to try to get answers to and vet with the board and vet with the applicant. And so, in no particular order of importance, I just kind of want to run down some of the questions and concerns and things that, we wanted to have addressed. They had concerns about traffic and traffic circulation. And I think, as we all know, Toilson, it's become it's a little bit of a busy road, and certainly during the summer season, it becomes a little bit of a pass-through road. And where this building is located, and certainly I think where the proposed entrance is going to be right around as you're coming around that corner right there. So they had a question about, if there was if any traffic analysis had been prepared to show, what impact this is going to have, not only on the quantity of traffic that this is going to bring to the area, but circulation and, no left turns, no right turns, entries, exits, see if that had been analyzed to see what the impact would be. They had questions about the parking. I think there were, based on, I think I looked at the plans, it was 60 parking spaces.
I
think.
counted 55, but maybe it's 55 to
That's
60,
okay.
something like that.
So the question
Okay?
was, how many of those spaces were allocated towards employees, and, if there was going to be anywhere contemplated that, if those sites are hopefully full, if there was going to be any, if there was going to be overflow parking on site, if there was going to be then parking up and down Toilson and Lumber Lane and Railroad Avenue, about the capacity of the buildings. I think by our count there were 105 seats allocated for, but we weren't sure. I didn't see any numbers about what the actual potential capacity of those buildings would be, because as we, certainly we're getting out of post-COVID times, and it's not really, you have to have a seat, you have to be doing this to be there. Those kind of restrictions are starting to loosen up, so they're trying to get an understanding about, operating at full capacity, what they're really talking about there. I understand that there will be, and I wasn't sure if it was an outdoor dining component or if it was just the beer garden was just kind of a gathering area for people to be, if there was intention to have some sort of music, indoors or outdoors, special events. With respect to the Michael and Christine's property at 19 Toilson, which is just to the south, the size and scope of any kind of vegetative buffer that would be there to protect them from, any attendant impacts for the use. The beer garden itself, if that was going to be, we understand where it's allocated, but if that was if any measures were going to be put in place to have that really be contained, either, fenced off, screened in, or both, to kind of stop, any spread of it into any of the grassy areas in the property, control the noise, control what have you that way. What measures were going to be in place to control any kind of lighting. It's a big building, it's a big operation. You obviously need something of this, a building of this size to take on the operation that they're talking about. So what was going to be put in place to try to mitigate against that? For those of us who are naive to the brewing process, is there, how often does the brewing go on? Is there an odor component to it? If anything, is any kind of venting or, to take that into effect or take that into account and minimize any impact. And then I guess the last component, that we were talked about was from an hours of operation standpoint. And I know it's a much larger and different project, but just by way of reference, I live out in Montauk, and Montauk Brewery's there. It's a much smaller thing, but they have very short hours of operation, and they don't go into the night. There's no restaurant component there, so it makes this different. But is this intended to be, is the food secondary to the brewery or vice versa? Is it intended to be, like a 10 o'clock shut-off? Is it intended to be much later than that? Do they not know, which would be okay? But these are just kind of the things that we kind of wanted to see if, get a little bit more information on to see how this can all work for everybody and try to, have this conversation with the applicant and the board and take it from there.
Well, I think those are excellent questions.
So that's what we had for the moment.
Yeah.
So unless there's any questions for me right now, I'd just like to.
No,
kind
thank
of
you so much.
cede the podium.
And may I have the applicant, can you answer these questions? Thank you.
Yeah. As you said, great points, and two big picture points about this project. One, when it comes to the neighbors, we certainly are open to suggestions and continued dialogue throughout, so that hopefully, we have something that everyone can live with. So we'll certainly continue as the process moves forward. The other thing is there are admittedly some aspects of our submission that we have to follow up on. The details of a landscaping plan, the details of a lighting plan. When we started this process and we spoke to Billy, we wanted to take advantage of the, it's even in the town's instruction packet or the village's instruction packet to meet with a board member or two and sort of hash out, just the big picture of the project. And Billy decided that the best way to start that process was to submit what we had. So that's why we're here today, without all of those, details. So if once we feel that the project is in some semblance of order, ready to move forward, we'll work on the details of things like the lighting plan and the details of the screening plan, which of course we'll happily talk to the neighbors about and put something in that's amenable to them. The traffic, we're certainly open to the traffic flow. I'll just address Brian's points. The traffic flow, we're open to suggestions from the village for sure. We had it so it's one way with obviously the egress as far away from the turn there on Toilson as possible. We do have 63 spaces on our plan, parking spaces. 10 are designated for employees. In terms of capacity, basically our ideal situation would be to operate at 140 seats in the season. Up to 70 of those we would like to have outside, 70 inside.
Right.
During the cooler seasons, we would shrink down to 105 seat capacity, and those 105 seats are noted on sort of our floor plan there. So that would be 70 in the main area, and then we have sort of a second area above the kitchen that would have 35 seats in the off season.
Is that going to be used for special events or?
It could be. I mean, I guess it could be. It's gonna.
Just-
Yeah. I mean, if someone wanted to rent it out, I don't see why that wouldn't be a use. But
Yeah.
But just like any other establishment, you could theoretically rent it out, for a gathering. Sure, I don't see why not. Let's see, was the beer garden. Again, we're open to suggestions from the village in terms of how to designate that. Like I said, we're basically not going to touch a blade of grass on the town side as part of this project. it's again, the ideal, our plan at this time would be to have some actual seats out there, designated seats. But, you know, that's all I can say is that's the plan, you know. Would it be could it turn into more of a hangout spot? I guess, but the plan is to sort of have it more organized with seating. Odor, so with, look, I guess, there's a restaurant there, so whatever, I think really that's going to be the crux of anything that's generated. And when it comes to the brewery use, and we've had the help of basically a brewery designer, someone that they're full-time, they're architects, but not in the state, but their full-time job, their business is to design breweries, so they know the ins and outs of you know, what you need in terms of space and everything else and capacities.
And the brewery, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's not a 24-hour
No,
operation.
not at all.
It operates, let's say, from what time in the morning, and what's the cutoff in the evening?
Well, so I mean, usually only on days where you were actually producing something, you would do your cooking of the batch.
Right.
And then it basically goes into storage tanks. Where smells can be an issue with breweries is when they don't have a space for the spent grains, you know, after the
Right.
brewing process. If they're sitting around on the property for you know 3 or 4 days, that's when you get the oatmeal smell.
Right.
We're not going to have that. We're basically going to apply those spent grains right to farm fields on our farm is the idea, and get them out of there right away.
Right. So, okay, so, any questions regarding the look of the building or the pros, other than the questions that they brought up, the people? Anybody? Yes, go ahead.
My name is Michael Nachman. I live at 5 Maidstone Avenue. I'm concerned about two issues. One is the traffic, the effect on traffic. The traffic in the neighborhood has become much, much heavier, and getting out of our street, out of onto Toilson or onto Gingerbread can take quite a long time just with the existing traffic as it is now. And Toilson and Gingerbread seem to be very heavily trafficked. And I think this may have just mitigate that, not mitigate it, and just increase that. The other thing is, I'm curious about the hours of operation. How long will the beer garden be open, the brewery open for their clients or for their customers, and the effect that'll have particularly in the evenings. And also, we have to, I don't think anybody's raised the issue of alcohol's involved here. And, with the capacity that they're talking about, and, people staying there for a few hours, we could have some unpleasant situations in the neighborhood that I think we would not want to have.
Well, I personally think within that area, you have like maybe 5 restaurants. We have Fresno, we have Dopo La Spiaggia, there are many restaurants. So the alcoholism and that kind of problem is everywhere. I mean, it's Montauk, it's Main Street, East Hampton, it's Gingerbread Lane, it's everywhere.
I must tell you that, we're a stone's throw from, which restaurant?
No, I'm just,
The one you would mention, not Dopo, the other
Fresno.
one. Fresno, yeah. And, it's been fine. But this seems, and you don't have the quantity of people that they're proposing here. So I'm just curious about that. And the hours of operation as well. These restaurants basically are done after 10 o'clock in the evening.
wow.
I'd like just quickly hit on the hours of operation. As soon as I sat down, I made a note that I didn't address that. This would certainly keep
That's a good question.
nothing more than normal restaurant hours. As you said, it would certainly be, at 10 o'clock, I would imagine it would be dead. We're certainly not going to allow anything turns it into a late night bar or anything like that. This is, We're going to make sure that the use is quiet in the evenings, particularly after normal restaurant times, and that's something that will always, I mean, you have our commitment on that.
Yeah. Well, most of the residents, I
So,
believe,
Mr.
stop at
Chairman,
10
can I be
o'clock in
heard,
that area.
please?
Nobody
Wait.
does.
He needs to.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Ben.
Thanks.
Vincent Messina, our village attorney.
Yes.
Okay. So, I'm looking at the application, I'm watching the meeting, obviously. The concerns about hours of operation, I mean, I'm sure I would be concerned were I there as well. That's not something that this board has jurisdiction over on this type of application. They're here for site plan and design. It's not like a special permit for a use under the zoning ordinance. That's something different. So, that type of issue, quite frankly, is, beyond this board's jurisdiction. We have to stick to issues of site plan and design. And to the extent that can affect traffic, which is one of the other concerns that were addressed, that's something that we would look at, or the board can and should look at. But again, we're not here to judge the merits of the use. That's not what this board is doing on this type of application. We're here, again, to look at the design of what's being proposed and the actual site plan itself. So Mr. Matthews' comment, for example, about buffer is well within the board's jurisdiction on something like this. And that's something that, the board can and should address, and I'm sure will address. But let's not get too far afield with those other issues about, what type of person goes to a brewery, or how much traffic it will generate, again, or the hours of operation. Those things go to the zoning ordinance itself. That's not what we're here for today. So I just ask the board to bear that in mind, please.
Yes. Yes, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'm Eric Gibson. I live at 30 Toilson Lane. I would just like to address, Mr. Chairman, your effort to rebut the concerns about traffic just expressed by the gentleman who lives on Maidstone Lane. It is true there are other restaurants there. There's Dopo and there's Fresno, but both of those are located in places close enough to Railroad Avenue that Railroad Avenue draws off a great deal of the traffic. This proposal is embedded in this Toilson Lane neighborhood, and there is no other way to approach or exit it than via Gingerbread and Toilson Lanes. Therefore, I would respectfully suggest that the comparison with Fresno and Dopo is not valid. Thank you.
Tom, do you have any?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Tom Prieto, building inspector for the village. Mine is more of a position of use. I'm not, our planner helps more in the design, et cetera. And, as presented, this does not need a zoning variance. It is a permitted use. The restaurant portion is inherently a use because our code in the manufacturing district does allow the uses that are available to the commercial district. And then furthermore, as far as the brewery would be more of a light manufacturing, which is an obvious use in the manufacturing district. So mine's not one of having an opinion, it's more of a code-based
Exactly.
approach.
And from your opinion, the code base and the design of the building and those.
Yes, it's
set
within,
forth,
it's
all, yes.
it's below the 10,000 square feet. There is the vegetative buffer that's been proposed and will be worked on further.
Okay.
Yeah, so,
Yes.
yep.
Thank you.
Basically, there are no red flags zoning-wise.
We need no
I'll
variances.
say that.
We know,
There are no variances this time.
Okay, it checks all the boxes as far as applicants' application. Okay,
Correct, Mr. Chairman.
thank you, thank you. And does Vincent have any comment on?
Probably not.
Oh, please, please. Go ahead. Yes, of course.
We have a building inspector. Thanks. Okay, yeah.
Hi, I'm Stacy Stowe, and I live at 27 Toilson.
Yes.
I understand via the village attorney that you do not address issues of traffic, et cetera. Do you address issues of zoning permitting or anything? You just mentioned the zoning's okay. I heard you say that?
Yeah, you're speaking to me?
Yes.
Yes. We need no variances.
Right.
This is an application that all the boxes are checked as far as approval. So,
Do you have any questions about the project?
We're,
Do you go after us?
we look at the design of the building
Yeah.
and lighting of the building.
Right,
That's
no, I
signage.
understand that.
that's our position, that's our job.
I
That's what
understand
we
that,
do.
but are you going to ask questions today about those things, or are you set on those? Because I don't want to overlap if you have questions. You have no questions.
If you have questions,
We have a
please
lot of
state.
questions, but we
So
thought
go-
you were going to have questions, so we were going to wait to hear from you. You mean, as presented, you have no questions about the design features of this project, am I correct?
I think the design of the building looks excellent, personally.
And you don't have any questions about, like, how the lights will shine,
Well,
what the sign will look like?
That's a
of-
later meeting.
That's an
I see.
application. I've only been on the design review board for 23 years. So those are separate applications.
Okay, all
Okay?
right, yeah.
My job is not to figure out how many people are over drinking or anything like.
Sure.
This is our job.
No, I
okay?
understand. I will just say, since it's my moment to speak, I'm 56 years old, and I've been a journalist since I was 23. So that's a lot of years. And you opened this by essentially,
This what?
you opened this meeting by essentially speaking to the applicant and saying, like, this looks great, this looks great, this looks great. I mean, I've never in my life been to a public hearing where there wasn't one question from the design review board. Covered many of these kinds of meetings, and there wasn't, you don't have a single question for the applicant. It all looks good? Or am I misunderstanding something?
You don't understand the process. The process is there are stages that they still have to go through.
Okay.
Okay.
That would have been nice to know from you when you began, because it just sounded like you were
I
saying
didn't
it was great.
realize I had to educate you.
Oh, I think you do. That's part of
Okay,
your,
all right,
you know,
okay.
we're citizens, and this is our community, and I
Well, I've
didn't,
been here a long time also.
I haven't been here a long time.
Okay.
So I don't know those things. Like, for instance, I don't know any of your names. There are no names up
You
there,
know,
so, and I
okay.
couldn't hear your names, or I couldn't hear, you know, so I'm just asking, I'd like to just know, you know, at what point are you going to address some of our concerns that were raised today, since you don't seem to have any of your own?
This is the first meeting for the board to review this application. It's the first.
So you, at the first meeting,
And
you
there'll be
generally don't ask
more-
any questions?
There will be more
Okay.
conversation about it.
Okay, all right.
And I think a committee, is that what you expected, Alex? A committee to work with the applicant.
I'm sorry, what will there be?
A committee to work with the
Of the
applicant.
design review board?
Yes,
Okay, and it's a subgroup?
yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other person with questions?
So should we,
I just wanted, if I could just follow, just for.
Please, please.
Great, and thank you again, Brian Matthews again. So just quickly, I know that this is the first time on, and we're going to be, you know, going at this for a little while to kind of vet the projects and vet our concerns, and we'll deal it with the applicant. So I'm glad that we're kind of all here for this first time, and we can, you know, work as collaboratively as possible, hopefully to try to, you know, get them a project that they like and that works, and trying to address everybody's concerns. So just the one thing right out of the box, and I know that they're still kind of facilitating some of these things, and what the lighting's going to be, what the actual operation's going to be beyond what they have right now. And I understand that this is it's a fluid process. Just I think, you know, something that would be good to get out ahead on is to address the traffic concern. I think everybody would have to be in agreement that it's a major use, to put into this area. It's a permitted use from the zoning perspective, certainly, but subject to design review and site plan review and everything else. So I think that would, at the outset right now, I think that's something that would be a worthwhile exercise of everyone's time to try to get a handle on that issue and see what the actual anticipated impact would be.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just have a question. Is the traffic study done through us, or is that another board? I mean, I'm just,
Usually, the applicant will prepare a traffic study, I believe, and then we send it to our village engineer.
So,
can you
yeah,
clarify
so,
that?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Although a traffic study may or may not be necessary for this particular project,
Right.
we'll consult with the planner. It's an as of right use. Okay, so you're not going to be able. Well, there's very limited things you could do about traffic. As I said earlier, you can certainly impose site restrictions based upon the flow of traffic and how it would go through the site and where safe places for ingress and egress are. But I don't know that you need a traffic study for any of that necessarily. We'd have to consult with the village planner when he's back.
Michael Nachman from 5 Maidstone. I just, as was raised by the young lady before, could you educate us as to what this entire process would be beyond zoning? What other panels or what other departments will have to be involved, and what the number of public hearings that'll be we could expect in the future? I mean, I just don't have any understanding of what this whole process would be like.
Well, we'll form a committee today, and these people from the Design Review Board will meet with the applicant and meet with you, and we'll have also the list that you have, that your concerns. I'd like you to formalize them and send it to us so that we could go over it, and then we'll begin that way. Okay.
Beyond the zoning issue, what other
this is zoning.
things would they have to get approval for before it could be?
Well, they're going to have to get approval for lighting, signage, and we'll form the committee. Our people here are experienced, and they'll work with them. And so all the questions that you have will be answered. That's how we do it. Yes, please.
Eric Gibson, 30 Toilson Lane again. I would like to address the village attorney's point about there being no need for a traffic study. This may be a fact of law, but let me give you the brief history of Toilson Lane. It's a 2-lane neighborhood street, which for many years has been a bypass for through traffic wanting to avoid 27. So it's already heavily trafficked. We understand this is a fact of neighborhood life, but the fact is from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on weekdays, and for a considerable period on weekends, there is a constant, steady stream of traffic along that street. Obviously, this proposal would produce considerably more. We understand that too. However, I think, regardless of the facts of the law, we as residents of that neighborhood are entitled to have some concrete, professional, statistical idea of what the traffic impact is going to be additionally if this goes through. Thank you.
Okay. So let's form a committee of our board members. Who would like to be on the committee?
I know.
Ann and Amy?
I would
you
like to.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we'll have you both on the committee to work with the applicant and also the attorney. You'll be involved. Okay? And any other questions? So then we'll report back here to, the committee will report back here when you're working with them, and we'll do it that way. Okay. Any other questions on this application? Anyone? Tom, any questions? Anybody? Okay. Okay. If not, any other questions, let's have a motion to adjourn. Can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Bye, Ben.